Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, we're going to talk about the growth in mobile banking, but first, my special guest is U.S. Senator Bob Casey, and we have a lot of important subjects to get to. As they say, we'll be back in a moment.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, Senator Bob Casey joins me. He was elected to the Senate in 2006. He's also served as a state auditor general and a state treasurer. Senator Casey, welcome to the program.
Terry, great to be with you. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Well, let's start with a very, very important subject, and that has to do with infrastructure. So as I understand it, and you'll correct me, President Biden came out with about a $1.7, $1.8 trillion infrastructure plan. There's been negotiations between the Democrats and Republicans, and the Republicans, which they started out at about $625 billion, now up to about $950. But there's still big differences to resolve. First of all, what are the main features of the infrastructure bill?
Well, Terry, I think the attempt by the president to put together really two major initiatives. One is he refers to as the jobs plan, and the other is the families plan. Those two combined are initiatives to make not just a once-in-a-generation investment in infrastructure, but really the largest infrastructure investment in probably 75 years. And frankly, it's long overdue. We're about 50 years or more late doing this. So it's obviously about physical infrastructure, roads and bridges and broadband, water and sewer, the electricity grid, so much that we have to invest in. For example, in our state, as you know, by one estimate, more than 3,300 bridges are still in a state where they need to be repaired and could be dangerous. So those kinds of structurally deficient bridges are a threat to economic health as well as a threat to so many communities. But at the same time, I believe when you look at the two ideas combined, jobs and families together, it's also investing in the human infrastructure, the caregiving infrastructure, whether it's child care or home or community-based services for seniors and people with disabilities. So we've got a lot to do, and we hope that there's some degree of bipartisanship that will prevail here.
Yeah. Well, the Republicans have taken off after, I think, the size of it, the 1.7, 1.8 trillion. The second thing, as you point out, when you deal with child care and hospitals, they say, well, no, that's not infrastructure. But you laid out sort of two broad agenda items: physical infrastructure, roads, bridges, and then you've got, how do I put it, the personal infrastructure, meaning where people live and where they work and the condition of their families.
Yeah, and Terry, part of this is just the reality faced by so many families, especially women in those families. For many women, the bridge to work might be a physical bridge, but it also might be childcare, quality, affordable childcare for their children. It might also be, the bridge to work might also be care for their mom or their dad, a loved one. And for a lot of people in our state with disabilities, they want the option of home or community-based services, but don't have that option. So it's going to be critically important to do all of it. Terry, I think we learned a lot in the rescue plan, which is you can enact policy that will improve people's lives substantially and very quickly. The child tax credit, for example, that was greatly enhanced, and that and several other tax credits has allowed us to, in one bill, reduce child poverty by 1/2. We've got to continue those initiatives in these upcoming debates about the jobs plan and the families.
Well, given the 50-50 split in the United States Senate, hopefully a compromise can be worked out. I think that's in order. I'll tell you what, I want to talk about what you have referred to as the 5 freedoms for American children. 5 freedoms. When you go through those freedoms, I'm tempted to read the 5 off, but I'm going to let you do that. It looks like this covers some literally critical elements elements in a child's life. And I'm going to let you begin to explain, and then we'll run to a break, and you can continue to explain after the break, Senator. Go ahead.
Well, Terry, thanks so much. We borrowed heavily, and we give attribution here to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. When he was president, he talked about the 4 freedoms for the human race on a worldwide basis. So we added a 5th freedom in the context of children in America. And most of them are self-evident, but we've never really had a strategy for our kids like we have for national security or other major endeavors we undertake as a nation. So the freedom to be healthy, we should make sure that every child has health care without question, whatever we have to do. I think another expansion of Medicaid could do that. The freedom to be economically secure, part of that is to give children a savings account when they're very young, and also to make sure that their families have the kind of economic security when that child is very young. The freedom to learn is obviously what a lot of us have been fighting for years, and what the president's talked about in the Families Plan, which is early education for every 3 and 4-year-old, pre-kindergarten education.
All right, Senator, let me
pay for childcare.
Yeah, we have to run to a break. I want you to get into the rest of these, and then I have a question or two. All right, we'll be back after these words with Senator Bob Casey.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association and Partners for Public Education, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
My special guest, U.S. Senator Bob Casey, and we're talking about 5 freedoms for American children. Senator, we're going through that list. Continue.
Terry, thanks so much. I mentioned the first 3, the freedom to be healthy, the freedom to be economically secure, and the freedom to learn. The next 2 are freedoms that we've got to enhance by way of protection and support. The freedom from hunger. So many children still hungry, even though we've gotten that number down towards the end of the pandemic. And the freedom to be safe from harm, obviously protecting children from predators, from those who would do them harm. We outline these as a kind of a broad strategy, but we have to work on legislation to bring them to fruition, because this is about a lot more than that child and his or her family. This is how we outcompete any country in the world with a skilled workforce.
Oh, no, yeah. And the other aspect of this is that all of these, the big 5, as you point out, I mean, it's not something that can be done like you can go to Congress and get one bill through through Congress off to the president for signing. This takes it's a multiplicity of legislation, but also policy, which the executive branch can set. Am I right about that?
No question. I think the Biden administration has embraced a lot of these ideas in the short run, but also by way of legislation. We got a lot of these initiatives, a good start in the rescue plan. We just have to continue them. Terry, remember that group that said it so well in a soundbite, Fight Crime, Invest in Kids. That was the name of the group. Right. You could substitute different formulations of that to talk about this initiative. And not just fight crime, invest in kids, outcompete China, invest in kids, grow gross domestic product, invest in kids, have a high-skilled workforce, invest in kids. So you understand what I mean. This should be a great American strategic endeavor, really an imperative.
Yeah. And there are 2 of them especially that have been in the news a lot. One is the freedom to learn, given COVID-19 and learning by Zoom, and whether you're at home or in school or back and forth, it's all gotten very complicated. And the other one that you hear a lot about is freedom from harm. Sexual abuse it almost seems like it's running rampant, maybe because there's so much more focus on it than there used to be.
And part of that, Terry, is to give states and local jurisdictions the resources that they need to investigate and prosecute those who would bring harm to children. Sometimes the federal government has to put dollars on the table or
Right.
jumpstart with funding. But this is one area where I think we could use a lot more investment, and I think at the state level especially.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about police reform. In particular, you want to focus on police reform for folks with disabilities. What's the element there?
Yeah, Terry, as we wrestle with this issue, and we're hoping that we can have a bipartisan breakthrough in the Senate. As you know, for many months now, Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, a Democrat, and Senator Tim Scott, a Republican from South Carolina, have been working on a bill in conjunction with House leadership like Karen Bass. So we hope that comes to fruition. But what I'm trying to add to that initiative are a couple of two bills that would focus on encounters between law enforcement and people with disabilities. Sometimes police officers are sent into situations where they're not prepared for, nor should they necessarily be, even though we need to enhance training. We need to make sure that mental health professionals are available and on the scene in instances where you have these confrontations. We could reduce the death number greatly by making sure that we can sometimes divert calls. Every call is not a police or
Sure.
other kind of emergency. We need to divert those calls to 211 or 988.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of calls, as you know, to defund the police, to set up community police forces. And there's the other aspect of it, which is more training for police. And I think that's the element that you're emphasizing here.
There's no question that we've had so many, and the numbers are just staggering, so many encounters that result in a death or a grievous injury to an individual because someone has a disability and there wasn't someone there to intervene and to help.
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of ways that, and frankly, law enforcement is very supportive of this, even if they may not be supportive of other reforms that we're proposing.
Yeah. Well, Senator, I want to thank you for coming on. You're always invited. We'd love to have both U.S. senators and the governor, regardless of party, just to get their viewpoints out. Be safe and good luck in Congress right now. It's not an easy job. All right, coming up, we're going to talk about the growth in mobile banking, and we'll do that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Well, what a topic, the growth in mobile banking. To explain that and more, we have Michael Wilson. He's the Chief Experience Officer at Member First Federal Credit Union. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Well, look, I want to get to the mobile banking, but you have some great financial statistics that I think a lot of folks out there would like to hear. So
Sure.
Get into a couple of them.
Absolutely. Well, the biggest thing right now, average savings balance in the U.S. has gone up to about $7,000. The average checking balance has gone up to about $3,400. Those average balances have both increased, but it's a really unique environment because there has just been a massive influx of government cash through these stimulus programs, and it creates an interesting environment for consumers and for financial institutions.
Yeah, and a lot of people aren't spending money on some of the things. I mean, now it's all picking up, Mask requirements will probably be dropped. In our state, it's open. The restrictions are gone. Governor Wolf listed them. And I think, you think that helped as well, in addition to the federal money?
There's certainly a correlation to being able to, get out and about, things along these lines. But you're right, consumers have been sitting on that cash while the government influx continues to see that come in. Now with the newest tax credit payments that'll be coming in, that'll continue to increase that.
All right, interest rates. You know I had to get to this.
Absolutely.
You're going to borrow money. You're going to save money. Take it.
Yeah. It's a crazy busy time with rates being as low as what they are. I know that we're seeing just a flurry of activity across all fronts with people looking to either the housing market's hot, so whether it's mortgages or what a great time to
car market.
Absolutely, yeah. The car market, the home equity market. I mean, it's a product of the rate environment for sure.
But what about these percentages? I can't, the checking and saving.
Yeah. So current interest rates on savings are 0.15%.
Say that again. I can't believe that.
0.15%.
Oh my gosh. Checking?
0.11% and 0.34% in money market. So, it may be a good time to look at, are there alternatives in ways to invest, looking at programs like that as well to make more with what you have.
Sure. All right, now we're going to get to the topic that I promoted, but
sure.
I wanted people to hear these because I think they're very, very important and they tell us a lot. All right, mobile banking is all the rage. First of all, what's mobile banking?
So the concept of, in the past, or even now, being able to go to a branch or having to go to a branch to do everything, you don't need to do that anymore. The concept of having a branch in your pocket as your mobile phone is exactly what mobile banking is. So being able to do anything that you do at a branch right through your mobile phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's what mobile banking is.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, debit cards versus mobile banking, that's also important. And we'll get to that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine.
Well, we're talking about a lot of things financial, and now let's go to debit cards versus mobile banking. Mike, take it.
Absolutely. Well, there is certainly a growth in mobile banking usage, but we're also seeing a trend in people using their debit cards more, which is fantastic, so people are not overextending themselves. But what's really interesting, you're now going to start to see a trend with the debit card being in your mobile phone, so being able to use your mobile phone at point-of-sale purchases through your debit or credit card.
See this? I use it. I use it. Well, during COVID, you didn't have to touch anything.
Right.
You just run it across the top of it and beep, makes a sound.
Contactless payments is exactly what you're talking about, Terry.
Yeah,
yep.
That's great. All right, you hear this a lot. Hiring challenge.
Yeah.
I see help wanted signs all over the place.
Yeah, it's really tough. I know that the unemployment environment right now is really making that a challenge. For example, we have over 100 openings right now, and it's a real challenge for us and many other employers to try to fill those. We have great amenities, a fantastic total comp. We have 10% in a 401k, and we're really struggling to find these, to fill these 100 open roles. So it's a challenging environment right now on the hiring front.
Yeah, you talk about an unbanked household.
Mm-hmm.
What's that mean?
Well, basically, what we're talking about is, underserved communities and underbanked households. It constitutes 7% of American households. And, really what we need to do some more community outreach to try to get into these communities to help and empower folks, have financial literacy programs, and really get people set up and served the way they need to be served.
Yeah. There's a growth in voice payments. What's a voice payment? How does it work? And then talk about the growth.
A voice payment would be if I picked up my phone and I said, pay Terry Madonna $5,000.
You can do that.
And then it happens magically, right?
Yeah. So that's gaining ground?
It is. Obviously there's a ton on the back end and a lot that needs to be done from a security standpoint. So as these investments in technology and speed and immediacy increase, so does the back end on the security front that needs to be able to make all of that happen safely and securely.
All right, all of these changes that you've been describing lead me to a very important question about fraud. Mm-hmm. Fraud detection. Would you argue that it's growing? And if it's growing, fraud growing, what devices are used to protect people's investments, banking and the other assorted financial activities that a lot of folks engage in?
Sure. If you hear of something that's referred to as big data, right, there's data behind everything. And so systems need to be able to talk and communicate with one another to verify everything. So those investments into that big data will protect the consumer as these enhancements in technology continue to make life easier, faster, more efficient, and more immediate for consumers.
Yeah. And what that's done is that consumer services will obviously be increased, and there is a growth period, and I'll put it this way, an educational experience, a learning experience that people have to go through as this technology becomes more fully implemented.
Yeah, it's a comfort level, right? We call it onboarding. So we have to invest in the things to make it possible. Then we need to teach people how to use it. They need to be comfortable with using it. And then it just becomes part of a daily habit.
Yeah. And I guess there's, people are going to make investments. They're going to decide what to do with the money. Is this something that people need some assistance on? I don't know whether they go out and get an advisor, an asset manager or whatever. But
yeah, you're spot on. And that's what we do, right? So technology can make all these things possible, but we need humans to help advise, give that consultative advice, show you how to use it, show you how to protect yourself. That's what we do all day, every day.
Yeah, I was going to say, the technology can be really overwhelming. And so obviously call a credit union, call a bank, get an advisor or whatever, but I don't know if it's possible. I mean, I'll get email about it and calls to say that you can do it without some assistance, because a lot of people get engaged in it and get involved in it and
sure.
Learn what they're doing.
Yeah, everybody has their own individual learning habits or styles, but the reality of it is there are 5 generations in today's marketplace, and 5 generations have 5 different habits, 5 different learning styles, and so you have to be able to help all 5 of those generations.
Yeah. And cardless ATM withdrawals are going up and up and up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a correlation to the cash that consumers are sitting on, especially with the influx of the government stimulus programs.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the program. This is an important update. I think we've all learned a lot, and thanks again.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.